Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Yeah. That's it. That is a name that tune that I want to be on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll be terrible at it, but I'll just I'll like bob my head back and forth, be like, "Yeah,
I'm
I know what you're talking about."
It's almost like the Star Wars spoiler cast all over again.
That's just I'm starting to think that's my persona. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
You're
ever.
just here.
Yeah. It's Persona 1 through 5.
Oh,
Personas 1 through 4 were complete failures, but Persona 5.
That is the one that we will use to take over the world. Hello everyone and welcome to the Super Magical Podcast, a show where we take a sincere, sarcastic, and spicy look at the world of video games, TV, music, movies, and more. Joining me here in the studio as he does every week is Hoover. How are you, mate?
I'm doing pretty well, man.
Yeah? All right.
Doing all right.
And joining us from just down the street, our intrepid intern, Stryker. How are you?
I am good. It's a pleasure to be in the studio tonight.
We are kind of treating him like the intern. He's got the smaller mic and the different mount and...
Oh yeah, and you were ordering him to bring cables on the way here.
I was, yeah.
Almost,
Like,
yeah.
you stop and bring cables.
You guys might
Yes,
remember
sir.
Stryker from our Star Wars spoiler cast, so he's come back to join us here in the studio for... Well, I guess this is like our standard podcast. I guess you could say this is what we this is like every fifth day the pitcher's going to go out there and throw, and that's us right now.
It's a little less roguey, a little less whinny
Yeah.
this time around.
A little more general.
Yep. On this week's show, we are going to talk all of the news that we care about, at least out of CES, including the resurgence of retro gaming, which we'll get into in a bit. Hoover and I have thoughts on Mega Man Mobile as our game of the week to review, and we'll take your questions, hopefully, by the end of this. So, you want to dive right into the news?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Everybody praise the sun. Out of CES, we found out that 8K is coming to our TVs.
8K and HDMI 2.
You had one fucking job
2.2.
not to drop that, and you did it anyways.
So just an FYI, the Mallo man handed me let's call it 3 shots of vodka before this. So if I go dropping stuff, don't
Like I just did again.
moving on.
So
how
8K.
about 8K.
Stryker, what can you tell us about 8K?
8K, well, as a lot of people know, 4K is still kind of going to the standard, but 8K is going to be even more than that. But the biggest push out of CS on that was with the mention of the new HDMI standard, which HDMI 2.2, which will increase the bandwidth of the data that you can send to your higher displays.
Right.
48 gigabits per second, and it can also handle high dynamic range and HDR content a lot better than the current HDMI cables that you can buy in stores now.
Mm-hmm. My question is anybody going to shoot in that anytime soon?
Yes.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
They've already been talking about it. They're working on the technology and cameras because everyone's been shooting in 4K for the last 4 years.
But does it get broadcast in 4K is the question. Yeah.
Not yet. But it's coming.
Okay. All right.
ISPs are going to shit their pants.
Yes.
They're already shitting their pants.
They're already
though.
shitting their pants over 4K. Oh God, no! And now now there's going to be 8K.
Well, 8K, and then
just
you have Dell
fucking
coming out
shit.
with, oh yeah, we're going to come out with our fancy new 8K monitor that's going to cost you $6,000.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ! I remember plasma being like that though.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I remember the first plasma screen.
Yeah, it's a 32-inch
out.
monitor. I was like, what?
Well, that's a fucking huge monitor
Yeah.
on top of that.
Might as well just buy a TV at that point.
Right.
I mean, you pretty much are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because 4K gaming is just now starting.
Just starting,
peaking.
which it even isn't even true 4K gaming.
No, it's not. It's
Ye-
upscaled, right?
Upscaled, yes, and with the Xbox One S and the Xbox and the PS4 Pro, which surprisingly, Sony was the proponent for Blu-ray,
Right.
and now you got 4K UHD Blu-ray coming. That's coming out the forefront big time. Xbox jumped all over that. We're like, we're going to put 4K UHD playback in our system. Sony was like, nah, we're just going to go with 4K streaming.
Yeah. I mean, it makes you wonder we don't know anything about the Scorpio yet.
Nope.
But that's coming eventually too, and so supposedly there's going to be a lot more, sort of hardware under the hood for that.
That one will. I mean, supposedly in all spend, but definitely that one's going to be more pure 4K gaming.
Right.
It's going to be rendered in 4K, all the 4K textures. Boom, nothing upscaled. Which, speaking from experience, because I have both with a 4K TV, still looks awesome.
Yeah.
But you can feel it could be better.
Fair enough. Razer has come out with a new 3-screen laptop. I'm going to ask this one of Hoover. Do we actually need 3 screens for gaming?
You're asking me.
Yes,
Mr. Ultra Wide over here.
This is the guy. Yeah, at home I've got an ultra wide and then a second monitor, and I'm like, I could use a third. And then same boat. I'm
And
at
then a
work.
fourth.
I have 2 standard monitors side by side, and then I've got a Wacom underneath that, and I'm like, I could really use a fourth. It never ends. It never ends.
No, it
if they
doesn't.
put 8 screens on a fucking laptop, I'll buy it. Like,
Okay.
I'll take it.
I bet you if he could, he'd have 2 screens on his phone, one on the front, one on the back. So
Oh,
it's just
hell
like
yeah.
straight through.
Hell yeah.
He's just going to he's going to bring a Surface Pro, and he's just going to like have everything like right there and ready to go.
And
Like,
he probably shit his pants when the 3DS came out with 2 screens. He was like, "Oh my god!"
Oh yeah. I have a problem.
Yeah.
It's not a bad problem to have.
No,
how much have your little ones actually gotten to play their 3DSs?
The charger is next to my bed. If that's any indication.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen.
well, we know what Hoover likes to do on his time off.
Yeah, Hoover bought himself a Christmas present this
Yeah.
year. Has anybody used the Razer laptops? Any good?
Not personally. I've seen them at
Yeah.
like PAX in person, and touch the keys whenever I had to sit down and use one.
Right.
But the idea, like the Razer Blade, like that whole system, to me, it looks cool.
Yeah.
And then like the whole external card.
Yeah, the card
bay
that you can
they
plug
can
into.
put a full desktop card into and just have it on the go. Yeah, it's one extra thing you got to carry, but cool. If I'm on the go a lot and I still want to
Yeah.
game, why the heck not?
Well, and isn't the basic like the CPU itself and the sort of core pieces are actually better than like most of the MacBooks out there right now.
100%. I mean,
And so you could use it essentially for doing your all of your Photoshop and all that kind of stuff anyways. And then if you plug into a second, the little box, the Blade portion that they have, it's like double the VRAM possible.
yeah,
and stuff
especially,
like that.
and it depends on whatever card you add in there.
Right.
You throw in a 1080, oh, good lord.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna get my hands on a 1080 first. Mr. 750 over here. I'm still rocking that one in the PC.
Yeah, boy.
Let's just say you're never going to want to go back when you get that 1080, speaking from personal experience.
Okay, all right.
Man, my concern with Razer is I've had a lot of issues with Razer. Pete's had a lot of issues with Razer, so I've seen some consistent issues with Razer.
Mm-hmm.
So it concerns me spending a whole bunch of money on a super high end
dedicated-
laptop like that.
yeah.
That's like it's all Razer. Like I went through 4 Nostromo gamepads that just like busted ass. Like as soon as I got into it, it's a bit of a concern. But I'm willing to see people put out some reviews on it, and then
It's interesting because I just realized I have a Razer like keyboard over here. That's what I use over here. I liked it because it lit up, and then I bought it. I bought it, and then I realized that all gaming keyboards light up like that.
To a point.
Most of them do. I mean, I have
Nowadays,
a
yeah.
Steel Series at work because I don't use Apple peripherals. They suck, and so like I use a Steel Series, which you can program and stuff like that to do too. But yeah.
I got a Logitech myself. Like
So do I.
That's where I go for
Yeah.
all of my gaming stuff. I get Logitech stuff, but I know people that are the same way about Logitech that I am about Razer. They're like, everything I buy Logitech sucks so bad.
Don't bring in the benevolent overlord.
Oh God.
On the hardware portion, you mentioned the 1080. Razer, or no, not Razer. I'm sorry. AMD just released a bunch of new cards at this CES that actually look pretty good. We don't know a ton about them just yet, I don't think. We got some specs on them and stuff like that, but they look like they're going to be contenders kind of going forward, right?
Yeah, no, it's that 100%. Like, again, there's not a lot out there, but, AMD's always been that mission. It's like, yeah, you got NVIDIA, and it's going to throw out the big, powerful guys and be super expensive, but we're going to come around and be like, we're going to give you just as good and make you pay less.
It's the AMD Vega, right? That
Mhm.
is,
The
yeah,
Vega,
that's the
yeah.
one that can compete against the 1080 Ti or whatever like that, right?
The one
Yeah.
that Pete was going crazy for earlier today.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it looks good. You know, it looks good. I mean, obviously, when you're going to need to get some benchmarks on it, which really kind of tell us to that sort of thing. But it's just nice to see that AMD might be finally getting up there with the rest of it because everything is
Catching up.
NVIDIA for a long time. So, speaking of benchmarking, Intel would probably prefer most people do not benchmark their new 7 series against anything else that they've made. Not doing very well for those folks. Kind of a moment for them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looked terrible, and Nvidia didn't bring much to the table either.
No.
We're used to
No, they
seeing
didn't.
Intel and Nvidia on top of the market, like everything's Nvidia, everything's Intel all the time, and they just didn't really have much to show. I think mostly Nvidia's issue was people were expecting them to announce more affordable cards, and they didn't, and they got up there and they were like, no, instead we have a bunch of stuff that's might maybe invade your privacy. I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't want to talk about it. And then Intel just totally drops the ball on the show. So
like, our new processors can't even compete with the ones we came out with last year.
man, super cool though, because that leaves a gap in the market, and hopefully people like AMD
AMD can come back,
do
Yeah.
make up the ground that they lost. Because I mean, I remember when I was really heavily into putting stuff together in like the early 2000s and stuff like that, it was you couldn't go wrong either AMD or Intel because they were that close neck and neck. And now it 2010 plus, it was like, just go Intel. AMD's kind of lagged behind, so you didn't really have the choice. Hopefully they can come back, so you do have that.
competition is everything.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So the Nintendo Switch, which we can't have a show apparently without talking about.
Ba-da-da-da-da-da.
Boom.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you. There's some accessories that have come out for the Nintendo Switch that have raised a little bit of kind of like, with that whole thing. I think one of it is the starter kit. No, the power adapter, which is basically a USB-C cord, I think. And so it kind of makes you wonder, okay, like it's just going to all be, USB-C the whole way, I guess, at this point.
I'm cool with a universal format. I mean,
Everything's going USB-C from working in the field that I do. I see that.
Yeah.
So I see all the stuff that fresh out of CES is going to come into the retail hands. Like Samsung made that big push with the rest in peace Note 7. That was their first phone that had the USB-C, and they started putting all their peripherals after that with it. And then you got stuck with a bunch of it after that phone started blowing up. But Apple's gone to it. Everything's going that direction.
which thank God, because I mean, way back in the day, whenever I sold cell phones, they were talking about like this is 8 years ago now. Oh no, 9 I think that I was selling cell phones. Like we were super excited that we had relatively universal, like the first couple Android phones had come out, and we're like, all the Android phones use, I think, mini USB.
Yeah.
We're like, check that out.
Mini, and then just went straight to micro.
Yeah, like that. And I sold a bunch of people on like, yeah, buy all this mini stuff. It's gonna be around forever. Yeah.
Ooh.
And then like the next wave of Android phones came out.
Let's
and it was
go
like,
back to micro
it's
now.
all micro. What a pile of garbage. But
Yeah.
you know, like we kept on being told that phones in general were supposed to move towards a universal format, and now, you know, this being 2017, it seems like phones and a lot of other extra devices are moving to
Heck,
a more
even
universal
laptops.
format. Thankfully.
Thankfully, yeah.
Like one of the ones that I saw last year that went straight to USB-C was HP Spectre, which is one of the thinnest laptops out on the market still.
It is, and they just released a thicker one, I think, just to get like 3 more hours of battery life,
Yeah,
and it's
just-
still really thin or something
super
like that.
thin,
Like,
but they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Have got my hands on a few of them. I love them.
yeah,
Yeah.
nice. The other thing that came out about this is like once all the accessories and stuff like that started showing up, the there's a paper in Japan, Nikkei. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologize if I'm not. They've had a good history at like predicting the price of the like Nintendo hardware when it comes out. They're saying $250.
Yep.
Right about it for that.
That's what it seems.
Yeah. Seems to be the kind of the prevailing theory with it too. So could be cool.
I've heard other storage options too. Like the Switch is going to come out with different, just kind of like a la Apple, different storage sizes.
I have a feeling with that, but I mean, they also are going to be running, the games are going to be running off of SD cards, which, I mean, you can get a 200 gigabyte SD card nowadays for super cheap. So,
you're
it's not
saying
going to be super fast, but
you're saying it's going to launch a brand new console for $250.
Yep.
Yeah.
As a starting price. That is super
if
fantastic.
they do that, they've got another Wii on their hands, like a huge hit, I think.
Yeah.
With the ability to just take it.
Let's
and go
hopefully
anywhere.
they actually stock them when it comes out. But
let's see how they Nintendo this. Yeah. Like we're waiting. We're still waiting for the other shoe.
Hoover and I had to wait for hours upon hours to get our NES classics.
Yes, I'm still trying to find one because I want to hack it. Because you can now hack them.
Yeah, no, I found that story last night. It's fantastic.
Yes.
Do tell.
You don't know about this?
No.
I linked it to you last night.
I'm telling you, I've been dead to the world for the last few days because I've been sucked into Dark Souls so hard.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, like, people are messaging me, specifically even you guys are messaging me, you're like, hey, come do stuff. And I'm like, the Watchers of the Abyss. The Abyss Watchers. So many Abyss Watchers.
I can't stop.
Look it up as we're going. You can now hack your NES Classic to install more games.
Just go look on your Facebook. Yep. I tagged you in a post for it.
He's getting off of Facebook. He's being all Luddite. And,
Don't get me on that soapbox.
So while he researches the fact of that, we can actually talk about it.
Yeah.
It's that, you can now hack it.
Put
it's fairly simple.
Additional 30 games
and put an additional 30 games on there.
Battletoads, man. Dude, Battletoads.
We can finally try to beat that fucking thing. Instead of watching the YouTube channel. I watched somebody try to do that one time on YouTube. It was the funniest thing ever. I still couldn't beat it either, but final piece of news that we have is just kind of something that's fun.
Another 30 games. You could put Battletoads on it. Man.
Thanks for catching up.
That's real exciting.
Thanks for catching up. You want to talk about Terry Crews coming to Overwatch?
Yeah.
That could be cool.
Doomfist.
Yeah. Is that his name? Is it going to be Doomfist?
Well, that's the rumored character. He's going to play Doomfist.
That'd be super
what
cool.
What the fuck is a Doomfist?
Well, in the opening cinema or that cinematic with Winston with the kids.
I'm terrible at Overwatch. I played a ton of it on console, and then I came to PC, and I'm still terrible at it.
Well, so if we're talking in-game stuff, you've played on Nimbani.
Yes.
The sled has that like fist thing that's in there. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but it's the golden sled.
No, I'm usually getting yelled at by Joe to cover the point.
Cover the point.
But there's a glass case with a fist in there, and that's Doomfist's fist that you're delivering.
It's like Thanos' glove.
Yeah,
something kind of like
very
that.
similar. Yeah, it's like the Infinity Gauntlet. Yeah.
So he's gonna be a beast. He's like how exactly would you describe him? He's like an anti-hero kind of situation. He's a bad guy, but not a bad guy at the same time.
Bad guy. He likes to blur that line, like kind of.
Is he like fucking Roman Reigns from the WWE? He's not a good guy. He's not a bad guy. He's the guy.
Well, it's one of those guys that like he has a cause, but he'll drop a building and doesn't give a fuck about who's around it.
So he's Superman.
Hey, hey-o.
I need that horn thing.
Any Marvel fan on the podcast was just like, yes. Take that.
Did anybody got some salve for that sick burn? All right. So before we went on earlier today, Hoover and I both played a couple levels of Mega Man Mobile. There are the first 6 Mega Man games now on iOS. We chose to go with Mega Man 3. That was one of my favorites from back in the day. And as we could tell you, we did an unboxing that we still have never put up on the channel, but we played some Mega Man in that too.
Mega Man 1.
So we were like, okay, let's try to play it on iOS. Hoover, would you like to deliver our official review of Mega Man Mobile?
Fuck!
Yeah.
Why?
Yep.
Why do this to people? Seriously, like it's such a twitchy, like I don't want to say twitchy because that denotes a completely different thing in 2017, but you just got like you got to mash those buttons and you can't be worrying about where your thumbs are.
Yeah.
Like you just have to concentrate and you just can't.
You can't do it.
You can't jump through all the obstacles. And if anybody who's played Mega Man knows, you will get bombarded by 1,000 things at once, and you have to thread that needle.
Yes.
And how exactly are you going to do that if you have to look over to your left to make sure that your thumb is in the right spot, look over to your right, make sure your thumb is in the right spot, and then move?
Yeah, I mean, there's a tactile feedback that you absolutely have to have.
Lack of a tactile button probably is what
Not
makes it
there's
pretty
no
bad.
there's not even haptic feedback from
good
the controller or anything like that. And so.
Yeah.
For those who complained about our Super Mario Run review and how harsh I was on it for the $10 price tag and all the other things that you get with that, these games are priced at $199, and I'm still telling you, do not buy them. They are horrible.
Do you know if there's
most
any
mobile games?
There are some that are good. We'll eventually review one that's good.
Yeah,
we'll find one
eventually.
maybe.
Well, no, I mean, all right. To defend that,
Sarah's Missing?
Sarah's Missing was a mobile game.
Yeah. I've been playing Mechanarium, which is pretty good. I'm probably saying that wrong.
Maybe so.
Do you? I mean, to the thing, like, yes, I do
Monument was great.
I have one or two mobile games on my phone that I don't play very often, but
The field,
one of them,
the field is definitely lacking.
Yeah,
is
it
the
really
point.
is. Yeah.
It could definitely do with some solid turn-based stuff, maybe. And I don't know.
Well, we talked about that a little bit with the Final Fantasy, but it was just priced way too much. Like
Right.
if Final Fantasy was $4.99. You know,
hell yeah.
so here's the thing: they released Mega Man X for this as well, and it was priced at $4.99, and they did that in 2012. They have learned nothing, abso-fucking-lutely
4
nothing
years and you don't learn a goddamn
in
thing.
4 years, and it did not receive very good reviews when it came out either. It didn't sell very well. I think the cumulative star rating for all the Mega Man games in iOS right now that have received reviews, because most of them haven't, but the ones that have all received about 1.5 stars
to 2 stars. Yeah,
tops.
That sucks. Is there any sort of external controller compatibility? I know that's not really like an okay thing. Like, hey, buy an extra device to pair with your device to play our game.
They
but-
exist.
They exist, and so here's my shout out to James, who we spoke with about it earlier. He has an external controller because he plays a lot of different types of games. So for him, it's just like another thing to be like, okay, fine, I'll just put this on the list. And I think there it's okay.
Yeah.
We'll have to try it out. We don't have an external controller on us when we're playing it. We have to review the game as it stands on the platform. And maybe we'll do an update if we can get our hands on an external controller. I just personally don't carry
Review?
one around.
Revision
so.
2.
Yeah.
Well, we could do an update to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I got a couple older ones. I don't know if they're still compatible with current devices. They're collecting
Should
dust.
be. I mean, they're all just Bluetooth connections.
Yeah.
anyways.
Are they
Yeah.
available on Android yet? I'm the iOS guy usually, so I'm
They
the ones that have to
usually supported both.
Yeah, but they said that with Super Mario Run, and that shit didn't come out
Yeah.
either. So there you go.
Yeah, I have some Android controllers. We'll have to take another look at it, but
Yeah.
still, it's a bummer, guys, if you're going to make a game and you're going to force us to buy an external peripheral to play your game, especially an external peripheral that's 10 times the cost of your actual game.
Right. I mean, and it's good if you want to play a lot of, and this leads right into sort of our big topic this week is retro gaming, because a lot of these games are starting to make their way back on the mobile platform. We talked about Sony a couple of weeks ago with some of their stuff that's coming. One of the big things that came out of CES was this piece of hardware called Super Retro Boy. And are you familiar with this?
I have heard of it. I
Yeah,
have not
so
seen much on
it
it.
just came out. It is a nearly exact copy of the old Game Boy. It can take Game Boy games, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. It can fit all the cartridges in there.
Ooh.
It looks like a very sweet piece of hardware that might actually get me back into some of those games.
It's got a nice big screen on there,
Nice.
too.
It does.
Like, it looks like it's got exactly the old school
look.
Game Boy hardware, but it's got that nice big, almost like 3DS size
Yeah.
screen on
Yeah.
there.
That'll be nice.
It
Yeah.
looks really good. It looks like that, it's getting a lot of positive reviews from the people who've actually picked up and played it. Hopefully we will get our hands on it. It's not one of those ones that is very difficult to get. It's made by Retrobit, which is a gaming company that has made some decent like retro consoles. They've got one that is, I think, I forget what it's called. But basically, like, they're doing this retro kind of thing correctly.
Well,
They've been kind of remaking classics for a while.
I've been seeing their stuff around for a while, and I just sort of downplayed it. Like, it's not the same. It's not the same as the old
it's not
jams.
as like an old, like the re-release. Like if
Yeah.
Nintendo were to come in, it's like, we're going to release the old Game Boy Classic because, people still want to play that stuff. Wouldn't
Right.
be the same, but I mean,
Right.
if it rivals it, might as well support somebody else that's
Well,
actually
yeah,
put
and
the
we
money into it.
We looked up that one console that plays like, what was it, regular Nintendo, Super Nintendo,
The Retron.
and yeah.
No. The Retron is a different company. That's the thing. The Retron, like the Retron controllers, which is the reason why we don't want to get it. That controller looks horrible.
This particular console, though, it had ports for all of the original controllers.
Ooh.
So you could buy a genuine Super Nintendo controller, plug it into this thing, plug in your cartridge of your old school Super Metroid, blow out that dust, plug it in, plug in your controller, play Super Metroid. $55.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like,
That's impressive, actually.
Yes.
like, why have we not been doing that?
Where's this in my life, right?
Right?
Well, so that's the thing. Is like you can get it on Amazon. It is the Retro Trio console from Retrobit. Plays NES, SNES, and Genesis. It's 3-in-1. It has all of that in there.
Genesis.
The thing is, though, their controllers, and I don't know how good the controllers are. I mean, it's got 3.5 stars on Amazon, which is decent.
Yeah.
But the controllers are built like the SNES controllers. And so it's like at least you're going into it with some of that muscle memory, which we've talked about being very important, when we're going back into some of these retro games, which is why we can't play like Mega Man on iOS. It just doesn't work. I spent literally 20 fucking minutes trying to get up a ladder today while Hoover is just laughing and like he's getting ready to record VO for something we're going to release later in the month, hopefully. And like, I mean, I just couldn't do it. You can't get your thumb, like you're not used to it. It's impossible. So, I mean, with the resurgence of all this retro gaming, like, what does that mean for the industry? Like, what do we feel like? There's enough of us that have all gotten old enough. I'm not going to call ourselves old, but we're old enough to want to get maybe our kids or maybe see the next generation, like,
Get their hands on it.
yeah. And is it important enough for them to get their hands on where it came from?
I think so, because it gives them a taste of what we grew up with, playing like the old NES classics, the SNES. Like that's a foundation of the video game industry, and everything that's all the fancy stuff that's out there today, all the fancy graphics, wouldn't be there if it wasn't for this stuff.
Well, so I've made this complaint a couple times before about how a lot of new games, they'll build this really thin story, and then they'll build this immense world and just sprinkle it with bullshit. I think this was even last full episode.
Yes, the
last
Assassin's
regular
Creed argument.
episode. Yeah, they just sprinkle it with stuff, and they're just like, there you go. There's your game. We have 600 hours of gameplay because it takes that long to pick up all of our bullshit that we left laying around.
You need to pick up poster number 50 million of 8,000.
If there was one more goddamn note from Benjamin Franklin that fluttered in the, like, you had to do this stuff where it would just randomly show up. Wasn't it in 3?
That was in
it was
3.
in 3 and
That was in
Unity,
3, yeah.
wasn't it? It was in Unity as well, but I
Yes.
couldn't get through Unity because the goddamn thing kept crashing on PC.
I played that for maybe on PS4, maybe an hour.
I
And
wasn't,
like,
after it crashed so hard on PC, I just swore it off.
Yeah, it was
and I'll
garbage.
keep up with it.
even
But-
on console, it was garbage.
yeah, and it's like, I mean, that's not content, right?
No.
Like, collectibles are not content. Maybe we'll make a shirt for that and sell it in the merch store.
Collectibles are not content.
I like it.
But
But
but like Metroid, you had a reason. You had to go back through, right? You had to go back through. So Metroid on original NES was one of my favorite games. Still haven't beaten it, but I've seen somebody else beat it, so I was like, all right, cool. But as a kid, I couldn't make it all the way through. I'm sorry. But like it was challenging enough because you had to know where you were going, and I always ended up going in circles because I never could picture the whole map. But if you think like that, and you think about like the original Legend of Zelda, you had a reason to go back through things, not to go collect something. There was one thing over here, and there was a thing over here, and there was a thing over here, and you had to get it to actually beat the boss because he would pwn the fuck out of you.
Yeah, otherwise you'd be walking and be like, I'm going to poke you with a stick.
Basically, I mean, you started out with the Master Sword in Legend of Zelda, and you could shoot things with it, but it still wasn't going to get you everywhere with Ganon without the rest of the Triforce stuff and all like that, right?
right.
And so that's sort of the thing with like a lot of these like retro games is, I have for like my 3DS, like Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which is one of my favorites from that era. And trying to play some of those, like A Link to the Past and stuff of those, like, because do we feel like that because they are trying to make us feel that way and wanting to go back and play it, or are we playing it because they are that good?
It's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, there's a little bit of nostalgia that takes you back, and you're like, oh, I played this whenever I was younger, and it was so revolutionary at the time. I think I've heard multiple people say that about like Ocarina of Time, that if you put it up against some newer games, it's not super amazing, but for the time, it kind of blew everything else out of the water, and it really kind of set the groundwork. And you can kind of see the bones of newer games in Ocarina of Time. There's something really neat and interesting about that. Functionally, as far as the game goes nowadays, like if I were to hand it to an 8-year-old and be like, check that shit out, they'd probably be like, I've played better.
Yeah.
But it's a piece of history, so it's kind of valuable. Other games, though, like there's a simplicity, how small they are, and just how much they can pack into it. Like Mario, for example, like any of the Mario games, it's an arcadey, just like jump through and have fun. That hasn't aged. That's still fun. You could still hand that to somebody who has no vested interest in who Mario is, which how could you not nowadays? Like, he's everywhere. But you could hand that to somebody and be like, play that. And you wouldn't have to tell them that it's, 30 fucking years old. They'd just be like, oh, this is hot.
Well, that sort of underlines the success of Mario Maker, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we liked to play that when it was fluid. It was still the side scrolling and everything like that. Like, it was perfect, right? Now you throw in all these crazy ass things for like the super like speedrun people and stuff like that, like myself, and then it just gets like a level of challenge over top of it that's great. And it sort of begs the question a little bit, and I don't think we have to get into it here, but have we run out of ideas for some of this shit? I feel like they get lazy.
I mean, a pattern, at least in 2016, that I noticed, a lot of remasters and redos.
Well, that's going into 2017. We talked about it last week. The Crash Bandicoot remaster that's coming up.
I mean, they did it with Assassin's Creed, the entire Ezio trilogy.
Yes.
Just before the holidays, they re-released that. I mean, heck, the big one in 2016 that everyone, not that many of us are going to be big fans of, but Call of Duty Modern Warfare being remastered.
Yeah.
But they shoot it in with...
That wasn't me this time.
God damn it. We are a professional podcast.
But the... they shoehorned it in, and they're like, oh, we're going to make you buy it with Infinite Warfare.
Well, and that one's so... All right, we can diverge a little bit into that. And that one is the worst piece of shit you could possibly have in a video game, because not only did they put it in there, they changed the story a little bit, and they made it with microtransactions.
Ugh.
Why the hell you need microtransactions in that game is beyond me, and it's ridiculous.
Because it's like every other Call of Duty they've released in the last 4 years.
But that's sort of the thing. Like, that was one of the best games probably of all time when it comes to the Call of Duty series. Like, that was a great game.
It was.
But the fact that you had to then purchase it again, really, is what it came down to.
Right.
And then you had the multiplayer you could have microtransactions in. And it's like, why are you going back to... I mean, you are milking a, 84-year-old cow at this point.
I just wanted to replay it with fancier graphics. Why you gotta make me do all this other stuff?
Right, exactly. Well, that's all you want to do, right? You just, that's... if you want the better graphics and stuff like that, I think that's perfectly fine. But why? Why?
Mm-hmm. I think there's just some game companies that don't understand how to monetize on something and make their customers happy at the same time. Nintendo, as much as we hate what they're doing with the Classic, they've put it in an affordable price range. It has multiple games. It is aesthetically pleasing. It's physically nice to play on.
It feels quality.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a cheap piece of garbage that they were just like, here, do whatever. But then there was that whole thing a few years ago with Zynga or King Games or whatever, where they re-released, what was it, like Diablo, or it was one of those dungeon crawls a couple years ago, where they made...
It might have actually been called Dungeon Crawler or something like that.
Yeah.
I know which one you're talking about. I can't name it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm really drawing a blank on it right now, but they took like a really big deal dungeon crawl that everybody loved, and they literally made like every step of the game cost you additionally in microtransactions. Like, you had a currency that you either had to wait on, or you had to pay X amount of dollars to be able to continue to play the game, and they just locked like every fucking door behind that microtransaction thing. There's just some companies that don't understand. They attract more flies with honey.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like you already have the nostalgia. You have a game that could theoretically withstand the test of time. Just, I don't know, shine it up a little bit, put a new price tag on it, put it on a platform that we can access it on. Like, that's all you got to do, man. Mm-hmm. And they just, I don't know, they get those dollar bill signs in their eyes and they just shit all over a perfectly good situation. Which, by the way, I hope that Nintendo carries on with this, and I don't know, maybe we can get like a original PlayStation Classic Mini.
PlayStation Classic Mini.
Oh, dude.
With like super micro mini discs.
That'd be fantastic.
Yes,
I mean, we won't,
no.
because they're already like reskinning, you know, like the Final Fantasy games and whatnot, and they're releasing them on iOS and all that. But, you know, it'd be cool if Nintendo kind of started a trend towards the
Well, I mean, there's already Sega's coming out with one, or it's already out. You just gotta find it.
It's out, but it wasn't made by Sega.
No.
I've seen it a couple places. It looks really cheap. So that's the sort of the other side of it. It's like it looks really cheap, and it looks like one of those like things that your grandmother buys you because like, hey, you like video games, and you just kind of look at it and it's like, I can't do anything with this, you know.
But I want to get my hands on it purely because when I was a kid growing up, I actually was given a Sega first before I ever got my hands on a Nintendo. So I grew up playing Sonic and all that stuff. Had to go over to my friend's house to play Mario, which I still did.
Yeah.
But I had the Sega at home, so I grew up with all that stuff. And the fact that, you know, I had that option. But the one feature on that one that I do like is the fact that it's got the port for the cartridges on top of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yeah, so it comes with 30 preloaded, like the NES Classic.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to a place that sells retro games, you can still get them and use them.
Nice.
Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's an added benefit. It's the same price tag as the NES Classic, so it's like.
By the way, those little cartridges, so awesome at the time. I remember, like, because fucking Tamagotchis, those little egg things, keychain things. I had like 8 of those. They're all dead as shit.
Admitted they were dead within like 10 minutes, weren't they?
Minutes,
yeah,
at best. But I remember there was one of the games that my friend had where you could basically load it with a Tamagotchi thing, and I was
that's pretty cool.
I was like, yes, this is the future. Memory cards are the way to go.
Yeah. All right, I think that's a pretty good place to stop.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we covered the questions that we had. A lot of the questions this week were, hey, why the hell did you review Mario so poorly? So there you go. That's why I reviewed Mario so poorly.
Because it's so
terrible.
We just want to take a moment, a little bit of breaking news, to be thankful that Gabe from Penny Arcade had to get rushed into surgery tonight. He is out of surgery, and his wife says he's doing well.
That's good.
So
what did he get pulled in for?
I think it was hernia surgery. Like he pulled something.
Herniated back or something.
I mean, he lives that crazy lifestyle. I wanted to make sure it wasn't like a gunshot. Him, you know.
Jim Dark Magic is gangsta. Is that what this is?
Man,
yeah.
I wouldn't want to cross that man in a dark alley.
I would not.
Yeah.
No.
So,
green flame.
Green flame. Yeah, so Tycho put it out there, and then his wife jumped on Twitter just about 30 minutes ago to say, you know, he's out and he's doing
glad
good.
he's
doing well. Good.
So we send our kind words as well out to Gabe.
Heal up, Gabe. Heal up.
So, great. Well, you guys have been listening to the Super Magical Podcast. Big thanks to Sean Fox, Tim Welty, Lance Fernandez, Robert Thomas, Ruben Jimenez for all the YouTube subs for this week.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. If you haven't already, please subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube, and leave us a 5-star review in all those places. Make sure you say something in the review, though, so we can actually see your name, so we can give you a shout-out just like we did.
We like shout-outs. Shout-outs are fun.
Absolutely. The links to all of our places are in the show notes every week. We don't do any paid advertising to get this show out, so we rely on the generosity of you guys to really get us out there. So if you have 5 minutes, please just help us out. Let us know. Send us your questions as well. You can post them in the chat on YouTube. You can post them in Twitter. We have supermagicalpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to just send us a long rant, that's totally fine too. The podcast is recorded here in Seattle and is a production of Super Magical Fun Time and Humanoid Games. Our executive producer is Alligator Pete. Our benevolent overlord is Grandpa Joe. If you have a comment or question on the show, like I said, find us on Facebook and Twitter. Search Super Magical Fun Time. For our intrepid intern, Stryker, for my man, Hoover.
Yeah, boy.
We will see you guys next week.
Thank you very much, Super
Thank you.
Friends.
Bye.
Good night.